our session. They have other commitments with Parliament. Now we have come to another interesting segment of our discussion where we will have the forum. Now we have a wonderful panelist which will lead this forum. I'd like to kindly invite our moderator who is going to come up stage to lead this discussion. Now, I'd also like to kindly invite our panelists to move up stage to take their positions. Now, at this point, I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Sfiso, who will take over and begin our forum. Take it over, my brother.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you, Program Director. Good morning to everyone. The Honorable Minister Savannah Mazia, in her absentia, she just left. We have been made aware. Also, I'd love to extend my heartfelt greetings to the Limco Queen management. That one comes from the bottom of my heart. Limco Queen is my alma mater. If you didn't know, now you know. I do want to greet my Chief Executive Officer, Babemlamuli Lamini, Kawe Mamba, his colleague from Channel Yemaswati, Tulani Fagutse from the Eswatini Communications Commission, our very competent regulator, as well as all our senior officials today and everyone else. A very good morning. We are gathered here at this very, very great Limco Queen University, and I use the adjective great intentionally because just 6 days ago, this very same university had, I believe, about 1,000 graduates graduating. And for me, it is always a moment that makes me reflect on my time here. I used to write exams in this very same hall. I wrote a few tests here. I used to chill here during my lunchtime sometimes, walked these pavements. And when I saw the graduation last week, I saw a lot of ambitious hopefuls who are going to shape the industry and contribute to the industry the same way that we have been given the opportunity to by these great people who are seated right next to me, who are shaping the landscape every day. So I do just want us to clap hands for all the industry shapers that we have had today. Some of them spoke in front of us, some of them are yet to speak, and some of them are seated. They will not get the chance to speak, so let's just clap hands for them. Amazing work. It's an important day that was established in 1996 by the United Nations, this World TV Day. It's exactly a year and 11 months before I was born. And they saw it fit that, before he's born, as someone who is going to, play his role in being a mirror to the society, that is what at least I believe television to be, that this day be recognized as an important day. And I am very, very honored to be given this opportunity to moderate such a great discussion with these great luminaries. Sandile Makanya, part of the independent producers, in fact, he's representing the independent producers, part of the people who are keeping the flame alive for the stories that would otherwise go untold. Because we can have limited ideas as, the Eswatini TV and the Channel S's of this world. We also have some of the people who graduate here and are not absorbed into the labor force. And those people are so, so important. And we are happy that Eswatini TV with Channel S, they are doing a great deal of a job in making sure that they are given a voice. We have a show on Eswatini TV called Pandestratini, another one called Street Quiz. And too often when I have conversations with people outside, they tell me that these are some of our favorite productions at Eswatini TV. And I always tell them, are you aware that those are independently produced shows? Eswatini TV is giving them a platform, but most importantly, they are putting the rubber on the ground to make sure that indeed we have these stories told. It is great work that you are doing, Mr. Makanya, as well as your colleagues. Thank you. Mr. Tulani Fagutse, part of the Eswatini Communications Commission, he did mention during his own presentation that part of their job is to regulate, but not only that, but to also provide infrastructure. And believe you me, I've seen it myself, the support that they continue to extend to us as Channel Maswati, as Eswatini TV. Thank you, Mr. Fagutse. Thank you to the Eswatini Communications Commission. Mr. Kawe Mamba, we all know Mr. Kawe Mamba, I believe, from Channel Maswati. Personally, I just want to also highlight that People and Places is one of my favorite shows. The minister spoke about collaboration, and I'm not scared to sit here as an employee of Eswatini TV to tell you that I tune into Channel Maswati to enjoy People and Places. An amazing program amongst a host of other programs that are amazing that you do. So thank you for the great work that you do. Thank you. Mr. Mulelekeng is my editor-in-chief. He's seated here in place of my very, very remarkable Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Mlamuli Dlamini, who will be leaving the room shortly to attend to other important work with the ministry, with the portfolio committee. But Mr. Mlelekeng is one of the people that continue to motivate me to do my job earnestly and diligently every day within the newsroom. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mlelekeng, in making sure that we deliver news that are factual to the people, but not only factual, that are compelling. And that is told by the numbers online and the many people that watch and comment on the programs that we produce. So thank you for that. Please allow me a moment here of an ICT moment. This is not only unique to Minister Savannah, even us young people are still trying to catch up with these things. I wanted to highlight, I made a note here when everyone was presenting their remarks. Too often, TV and film production gets the nod, gets the claps when it comes to TV in Eswatini. But it's not only that, we are made up of a whole lot of other individuals who do important work. In Eswatini TV, I can even name names of people in other departments who have graduated from this very university. We have people from public relations who are doing amazing work with Bonomcebo Malinga at work. And I'm sure you've been seeing how robust our communication has been recently. Part of that team are people from Limco Queen University. Amazing work they are doing. There's journalism, which is also studied here under the same faculty with both TV and film production. They do amazing work under the different newsrooms that these two channels have. There's marketing, there's creative multimedia. So many people doing great work for TV, but in different departments. So we are not forgetting them on this important day. But briefly, before we start, I also just do want to share that for me, television has done quite a lot in making me the man that I have become. From as little as I was a kid enjoying animation, I was playing basketball on Saturday. I had a conversation with some of the kids who are still in primary and high school, and we related on the same level because growing up, I used to watch the same animation that they continue to watch, and we were all watching it on TV. I grew older to become a kid in my early teens, started enjoying programs like Soul City, and I'm sure a lot of us could attest to that, which sensitized me beyond just what was orally taught to me in class about HIV and AIDS. In fact, I believe it having a graphic on top of what is being said in mouth made me really want to abstain and made me want to make the right decisions. That's the power of television. And then I grew older. When I got to college, started enjoying news channels. This is literally the only thing that I used to watch. Channel 405, all these news channels. I didn't know that it would come full circle and I'd be reading the news one day, but here we are. It has come full circle. So that's my little bit before we get into our questions. I promise my questions are not going to be very difficult. They are very related to the work, the important work that you do. And I would have loved to start with the Ministry of ICT, but as you can see, our Undersecretary could have represented our Principal Secretary, Babe Peshe Adube. Magema Kanjana Motsa left with the Minister, and this seat is empty. But I believe, Mr. Fagutse, you can answer some of the questions that I had prepared for the Ministry of ICT, if you will allow me to do that. Thank you. He's saying it's fine. Right, so the Ministry of ICT is doing a great deal of work. Some of the work in harnessing our digital future and shaping it going forward has been mentioned. With the government in your hand, there's many other policies that are being put in place, some of which in collaboration with SCCOM. We've heard of the Data Protection Act. Mr. Fagutse, I just do want to understand, with the ministry's work that they are doing, how do you envision that television adapts to, say, align with the goals like bridging the digital divide, as it were, that we see, as well as promoting inclusive access to information?
I hope the mic is working. Good afternoon once again, everyone. I can attempt to respond to the questions, but before I do that, I would have loved the ministry. You know, a drive to Lowamba is actually 15 minutes.
Right.
And the session is starting at 1. So there's still a bit of time. But let me attempt. You would know, and colleagues, if you might not be aware, there's a lot of work that the ministry has done in as far as ensuring that the environment is enabling, you know, even from a policy and legislative perspective, just to address some of the questions that you're asking, because the starting responsibility or role for government is to make sure that the obtaining legislation, they are allowing for that. You would note that we now have the Broadcasting Act that has been passed primarily to deal with those issues, to say how do we promote access to information. And in that piece of legislation, many aspects of that are covered. Right. And from a government point of view, and from what we have seen in other industries, the introduction of competition, which the legislation allows or paves way for that, significantly deals with many issues and gaps that we are seeing. If we look at developments in the telecommunications sector as an example, which we are responsible for regulating, you know, in 10, 12 years ago, one of the issues that was there was inefficiencies in terms of how services are delivered and pricing and many of that. You know, if you try to deal with those issues individually, it takes a lot of time. But the moment you introduce competition, my uncle here is going to pull his socks up. My brother here, he will have to do that. And in terms of making sure that the services that they provide, they reach all corners of the country, it is quality information, and. So that is what the legislation provides for. But it also provides for universal accessibility in terms of the information, in terms of the infrastructure that we're talking about, to say how do we make sure as a country that there is enough coverage, if I may put it like that, in terms of television broadcasting, radio broadcasting, and now we are in the age of digital. How do we make sure as a country that there is that level of accessibility? And accessibility, if you come into the digital space, it talks to affordability in terms of the means of communication and how you access the digital. That's a topic for another day, to say, internet services affordable that would allow that people access digital or online platforms in a way that they can, taking into the context of the economy in this country. It's a long discussion, but a different one, a separate conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, because it speaks to me. You speak about the perennial cost of data, something that is very, very key in addressing what you have just spoken on. And I know for a fact that the Ministry of ICT, in collaboration with the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, are doing everything that they can do to make sure that the prices are not as perennial as they are. I want to come to Mr. Mrama. I'll come back to you, Mr. Fagutsa, because you also touched on the infrastructure, and I suppose we'll be speaking on the work that the regulator does when we get into that. But Mr. Mrama, we have spoken many a times about the numerous opportunities that television continues to offer. I'm one of the many people, I almost said a few people, but I'm realizing now that it's quite a lot of us who have been lucky enough to be absorbed into the industry through the channels like Channel Maswati and Eswatini TV. I just do want to understand, with so many numerous industries and opportunities being open, how are you leveraging the role to stimulate local production? Mr. Mrama here, as well as, you know, support the economic growth in Eswatini.
Thank you very much. Yes, Your Royal Highnesses, my colleagues and everyone else who's here, with all protocol observed. I'm in a predicament here. There's so many of my bosses here from ESCOM. Actually, everyone's my boss around here. Even the CEO himself is my boss, because I've worked for the station for about 20 years. Yeah, I heard from one of my colleagues here that he was there in 81. I started in 82 in television. That makes it 42 years in the industry right now. So just to answer your question, there's been so many changes and rearrangements in our industry, so much that it's kind of confusing. I actually looked at some of the topics that you made here. Actually, when you want to try to deal with the one, it then is affected by the other. Because yes, TV used to have that massive reach that used to happen, but right now we've had these disruptions of social media, which is creating a serious complication. Now there's more local production in social media than with us. So that's just part of the challenges that we are currently faced with, that we really have to grapple with. You see, I'm coming in from a commercial sector where we don't have funding, we don't have anything. So first, we really have to have the money to make the production first. And then that's the major problem that we are currently having. So we really have to come up with the strategies in terms of dealing with the situation in the country, because there's a number of issues that you have to put into mind here. The economy, the social structure, the legalities that come with our regulator. There's just so much that is involved in answering a question. So it will be very much difficult for me to answer it directly unless you are more specific on an issue that I really have to address.
Thank you. I think that answer is good enough for me. Maybe let's just come to Mr. Mrama, as he's one of the key stakeholders in this particular question. For you, Makanya, how difficult has it been? But more importantly, what are some of the policies and the programs that have been put in place to make sure that, as it used to be difficult, it becomes easier to collaborate with Channel Maswati and Eswatini TV, and how has that relationship been like?
Sibingelele bongosi. Sibingelele abadala labasendlini nabaphathi bethu nabo bonke labakhona endlini. Kusho ukuthi ngibe policy lesebenzisa ngcono noma ngibe policy lengangena isebenzise kahle. It's a bitter, it's a sweet and sour thought because we've dealt with Eswatini TV for quite a while. I've been in the industry since 2010. So we attended a number of meetings and a number of workshops that will pass on the skill that is going to try to come together with the channel, with the regulator. How do we work? How do we go forward? We tried going forward. I remember recently we had a number of locally produced content. It was series in Eswatini TV. It was really big. It was going forward with quite a huge momentum. I had hope. I had big hope. But we faced a number of challenges. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but there were significant challenges. With all due respect, Bongos. One of which was delayed payments. But above it all was Eswatini TV. I don't blame them. I think they were underfunded to fund, which then makes them to say, Makanya, we need a series, but we are going to pay you, we are going to pay you 15,000 per episode. A series bangwane, kusho ukuthi ngicashe bantu labatawu actor, laba over 20 leads, and then lalamanye ma extras. Kusho ukuthi kuze mina ngiyithathe le project, ngiyisebenzele, ngidilivela vele ndayidlala. Idaba sapha, angeke ibe nguleli zinga lengilo. Kepha nakhona le ngidamncisha kuze ngikhone ukudeliver. Ndamncisha lo actor, ngidamholela imali engephasi kwanayo laba abaholela yona ka Shoprite. Ngidamncisha lo editor ngithi awumna kethu uzama man 2 1 2 3 la sebajaka i-episode ngale. Lokusho ukuthi bekunene, that is not the nkwe ingwenyama lekhulume ngapho. Ngiyathi inkwe senimuve kaningi, kepha mina lo nkwe lengamuva ngwenyama nginangilothi it's a sustainable and self-reliance growth, which means the industry needs a sustainable and self-reliance growth, which do not have to rely on government. Ukuthi government umfandile Eswazi TV sesingancingancinga bongosi sizame kushuta. Kepha na kufanele kube yinvo lenjena ukuthi siyakhona kushuta. Ekukhoneni kushuta futhi singayi lapha kushutheni bongosi. Ngicela si-understand ukuthi TV njengoba sikhuluma ngaye namuhla nalama independent producers, they are not sustained by TV. They are sustained by everything as related to media. Mina ngingimakhanya universe, ngiyamshuthela TV, ngiyamshuthela MTN advert, ngiyashuta Thombe the billboard, ngiyashuta content of social media. That is the space that sustains the media industry in the country. And so we cannot work with policies that work for South Africa because there's a company that only delivers to TV. That means we need to be in a position where we tell the companies that are in the country, you cannot use marketing content that do not have Eswatini faces. We cannot use billboards in the country. Onke lama billboard ushayela kusuka eMbabane uyofika eManzini dithombe the stock image. Babu labo photographer badlaphi. Nabo abantwana bayagraduate abekunene. Kufanele ngabe ngibo labashutha lama billboard lata upastwa la emabonzeni. Kufanele ngibo labashutha lama social media content. That is where government comes in bekunene kwekuthi ke companies should be given an incentive. Ngiyaxolisa kulula wona kunene. Companies should be given incentives. Ukuthi will give you tax credit. Yeah, 10 million. Ngiyathi ukuthi inombolo lenkulu nayithuke lapha kunene. Kepha na utawuthi revenue authority simnika njani tax credit isithatha phela imali ngoba that's a loss to the organization. If we are given tax credit, that means the companies that are going to produce the content should be paying enough tax to make up for the tax credit that is given to these industries. Sengiluleka kakhulu nawo kunene.
Thank you, Makanya, for your candid and very frank submission. I do see, before I come to you, Mr. Mlelekeng, please allow me a moment of being negligent here a little bit. I haven't come to you. Mr. Fagutse, you look like you wanted to chime into what you were saying.
That's correct. And it's from a perspective of what, from a policy and regulatory point of view, how have we put processes in place that assist in the discussion that Mr. Makanya is bringing on board. It's a question of how then they get operationalized. My colleagues at the back will agree on this, that we have intentionally included in the regulatory framework that my uncle here and my brother here in there, in what they broadcast, and in line with the submission from the minister, honorable minister earlier on, to say we can't all be looking at getting employed, which means that if we are not saying, we are saying there are no employment opportunities, we must be creating other opportunities that will then absorb. So we have put in a requirement that broadcasting stations must, at a bare minimum, broadcast content that is sourced from local independent producers. There is a specific, and I'm looking at my friends there, if the broadcasters that we have are meeting that, that is a clear requirement. It is trying to take care of that aspect, that we can't, if we are saying the young people that are here must produce, must be creators, where are they going to take their content to? So we are creating that space in local broadcasting stations, because it is not going to happen where everyone has a station. So they must find space in the local producers. I think there is something that we really need to try and follow up to say, what are the bottlenecks and how do we deal with the bottlenecks? The first one, and if you talk to anyone in this country, they will say the problem is money, you know, and there are creative ways in terms of how we can look at that challenge. It was just to indicate that there are requirements that, and if you find that in his station, it is content that he produces himself, he is in breach of the license conditions. And then he must some way, in one way or the other, account for why is that happening, because there must be space for all the people that are here on his channel, on the next channel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fagutse. How enlightening is this forum here? I do want to highlight that, Mr. Makanya, I can only speak without even being given the permission to, but I'm confident to speak that I know that my Chief Executive Office has spoken a couple of times about making sure that local independent producers are empowered. I know that that's something that is being discussed and should be implemented very soon. And perhaps it also gives us a moment to acknowledge platforms like this, which I believe will go beyond just being a talk shop. All these things that we're discussing will be implemented, and those bottlenecks, Mr. Fagutse, will be resolved. Mr. Mlelekeng, let's come to you. and I want to speak to you on something that is very important about television's role in emergencies. We have seen the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw the civil unrest. These are emergencies, and they were very shocking to a lot of us. I'm sure it puts a big responsibility on the channels like Channel Emaswati and Eswatini TV to, make sure that you continue to be the mirror of society, even in such times where there's restrictions and people can't go out, including journalists who are then supposed to go out. What are some of, the strategies that were put in place or that you continue to put in place for potentially incoming emergencies to make sure that we continue to deliver content in emergencies?
Thank you, Nxumalo, for the question. Angicela ngikuvusela your Royal Highnesses ngoba ngitholile ukuthi babili. Bese sengivusela ngidawusho ukuthi nawo onke ndawusho ukuthi ma esteemed guest ethu la khona la nepanel. The question lo yibutako Nxumalo ngicabanga ukuthi we need to appreciate lo ukuthi I-technology kufuneka ukuthi si-utilize to the maximum. Because lokwendekako nasikhuluma ngema-emergencies kusho ukuthi vele there are places that you can't reach, that becomes a fact. But then still sinale duty nale responsibility ukuthi si-provide le information, because with that information people are then able to make decisions la informed. So part of strategies lekufune siqhamuke nawo kwekuthi sithathe live lethu silihlukanise ekhathi ngema-regions. Then within those regions, bese sesenda i-deployment. Yekuthi nakungathiwa kune-emergency leselibonjeni nyalo, thina based eMbabane. It will take us probably 2-3 hours to reach elibonjeni. So what do? We deploy a regional correspondent. Lota ukhona ku-networker with the local community, such that kube nale credibility. Ukuthi each time ku emerge something, let's say imangalisa sive noma live, that person becomes their first contact. So ngale technology, that person is able to be on the ground immediately and start recording. Nasikhuluma ke nge-technology, again, I want to emphasize something which probably sesakukhohlwa, but something happened in 2012. Kuhleti i-United Nations Security Council, UN House. In Africa, kukhona lebekwendeka ngiyakuvukhuluma nge-unrest, but singifuna ku-referisha eLibya. So eLibya bese kunala tensions to an extent that the then president issued a statement saying he was going to crush I'm going to crush those rats, meaning people who are living in a city called Masrata. And what's nakacetha kusenda le statement leso, don't get imoto takhe, because now he was instructing the army to go and crush the people in Masrata. Then someone, low citizen, I think that's where about citizen journalism come from, filmed the army on the way to Masrata. Ngala, this person is filming. Ngale, United Nations Security Council, ihleti ba debate resolution lekufune bayiphassise no-fly zone. So then what happened? Guthi, what's naga filmisha? Asendela Al Jazeera. I'm sure United Security Council will have all the screens, because as they are deliberating, they are also monitoring. The minute they played that video, a decision was taken. Kwabang United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973. Lebega passisa lokwekuthi sekude i-movement leyendekako, including those soldiers on the ground, because had they continued to move, nabo bebataba cetsa nje, but lesikuthola ukuthi bekuyolimala abantu labanengi le, but umuntu munye with a cell phone waba responsible. So what am I trying to say? Ngizama ukuthi nathi silive la Eswatini, we've had emergencies. Last year, if sonke singakhumbula kahle, abantu baphelelwe imoto tabo ngestorm lesikhathe across Ngculwini, sashaya indlu nani. Someone lebeka sembabane having planned ukuthi uya eNgculwini and probably relying on news cycle yethu. Leta uchamuka say ekseni we have KBS, emini we have a midday bulletin, then later in the evening. Kunala gaps in between. Particular gaps, a lot is happening. So if we are able to then say we have people on the ground and we are tapping on the technology, ngekuthi sifike kulabantu ngalama platforms laba waphethe, because nyalo tindzaba tisa break ku the traditional linear television lesiyatiko. Tindzaba ti breaker on the phone. So if we say as a station sing channel yemaswati sing Eswatini TV, siya realize kunema scientific studies lesentiwe to prove ukuthi I cell phone sayingene ku intimate zone yemuntu, because probably most of us the first thing we engage with nasivuka ekseni it's the phone. It means that's a platform let's say it disclose. So we now take the information with our credibility and reach out to the people ku earliest convenience. So city let's take those approaches normal to acknowledge ukuthi technology ikona, yes akhona ama disruptions, but we can leverage on those disruptions, because konke if usikhuluma nje ngala ma streaming services sila, but umvlo sekhaya uyabona ukuthi namhla kwentekani elimkokwini. So we need to understand ukuthi sinayo le power yokuthi si reach kulabantu in times of emergencies and sibe immediate, because nasi kule business nabo babemamba yetindzaba kunema news values akhona. Ikhona nje lenye ivalue lekhuluma ukuthi immediacy becomes one of the values. Kuthi le story nasbreaker sifike kangakanani nasinyane kangakanani kulabantu. So I think those are the strategies that we need to adopt. See media yonke elive ukuthi si appreciate ukuthi we now have a technology, and most of us, the commission will attest to that. By our keeping ma figures emaswati lana ma smartphones, we might be battling ema issues about access in terms of the internet, and we hope the commission will also factor that in kuma future discussions abo ukuthi le internet I driver akusasi nje ukuthi maybe it's something ukuthi I'm being luxury. No, it's not luxury. It's a necessity, because at some point it meets a universal human right, which is the access to information.
Thank you, Mr. Mlelekeng. Very proud to have been amongst the first cohort to be deployed in the regions. I was in the Shiselweni region, and it was trying times indeed during the COVID-19 pandemic, and consequently and incidentally the civil unrest. Mr. Mamba, let me come to you and speak on promoting representation. We have seen Channel Maswati doing a great job of being the voice for Eswatini. How are you working to ensure that television continues to represent literally every voice, because it is the mirror of society, every voice in society, as well as reflect both national and global cultural dynamics?
Siyabonga kakhulu, ngicela nje ukuthi ngisho lapha ukuthi lingisithile lijala somnyama bese likhuluma iSwati. Ngoba solo sibambekela singisini lapha lenza ngicela ngikadiva ngalo sengisini kwamina. Asophinda lo mbuzo kushaya ngasintu kenyanga.
Kulungile Mfulini. Cha, umbuto ucale ngek-acknowledge indzaba yakhe ukuthi siyayibona i-channel yemaswati iyachubeka into umsebenzi lomuhle kuba ndawuboleka ngala ka Eswatini TV kuba sibuko semaswati, because that is what TV is essentially. Nisachubekane kwenda lo msebenzi lomuhle nakangaka, engabe yini vele lenichubeka konekuyenda kuqinisekisa ukuthi niba sibuko se society semango kusaqhutshwe kwayembili nakuchubeka ke ku upholder lama national and global dynamics la khona yazithu.
Siyabonga kakhulu. I-channel emaswati ngethemba labaningi bayayazi ukuthi kakhulu inaka kakhulu kuma human interest stories. Thina kakhulu uma ngabe sitawukhanza abantu baloyana siyema. Utawenza Mlelekeng. Nasikhanza ukuthi indzawo inetipoko siyafuna lo sisibone itipoko sivele siqhamuka kuphi. So ngiyo indlela thina lesicontributor ngayo, especially ku society, just to make sure ukuthi kucishe kuyahlangana ngoba indlela esiphila ngayo singemaswati. Empeleni naninganaka kahle hle i-positioning la sikhona khona thina sisenkoyoyo. Enkoyoyo kusemakhaya. Sifuna indzaba lapha emakhaya. Sisuka kamanzini kuze sihlale khona safika sakhanza abantu balwa bashayilisene kabi imoto. Safike sabashutha kwaphela ibattery. Boyithula abantu ba understand ukuthi ngcono silandzelane siye Tiger City. Sayithola ibattery base bachubeka bayalo. So they did understand that they have to fight for TV. So that's part of the contribution that we're doing to society, if that was the question. Bengicela nje ukuthi ngicamukele kancane nje kune issue lapha lesuke ingihlupha issue yaba independent producers. And I have a suggestion. Ilimkokwing iproduce abantu abaningi. Some of them sibabona seba setitolo. Sebenta into letinyelo khanzathi abakakufunzeli. Kanti we have an opportunity. Le bangayihanesa bonsongo mnyama ngala kuma independent producers, especially esigabeni seksi social media yasishaya manje futhi kakhulu. Njengoba ashito Mlele King kusenza basetivela ku social media kuqala. Kanti thina lapha we have a united force with these students and others who have graduated. Kuthi bebanga ba part of the independent producers. Nase befika lena babe nama cameras abo. Each time nabana something bashute balethe kithi sibhadale thina. So that's my suggestion lesingayenda at least lapho sitawukhopha kubamba nasimo se social media sitawukhopha futhi kubamba lendlala. Because our situation currently is mhlambe nje futhi ngabiya ku commission lapha ukuthi as part of their regulatory issues nabanganaka to create what we call an enabling environment for us to thrive as well. Because emakethe there's what you call entry and exit, ne-equilibrium. Much as there's demand, there has to be supply. But in this case, there's no supply because no one is paying us for that. So it's the commission labafuna sibende lo ukuthi le mali sitababhadala ngayo labantwana i-commission is seat. Namuhla if utawuthola li page lakho likhulu nje kaSwazi TV lapha ku YouTube kuthi indlela lotal monetize ngayo la kithi kuze wakhe imali kuthiwa utafuna uyohlala eSouth Africa. So ngiyacela i-commission ukuthi ayikunake lokho. Konke nakubo Facebook nayo tonke lenza so that sitowakha le mali thina sitokwati kunika labantu abantu namuhla nje batawuqedza lapha baqedzile baningi bade umsebenzi asikhetheni lo msebenzi angathi noma ngiteka yona yini.
I am tempted to give you a moment to respond, Mr. Fagutse, or maybe for another time because he's speaking to infrastructure development, and I am almost certain that you are having these conversations as the Communications Commission.
Thank you, Program Director. I am tempted not to respond to the comments by Mr. Mamba, but nonetheless, I think it is important maybe that we also share the perspectives of where, as the regulator, we come from. Whatever form of support that we extend to industry participants, it must come from the industry. You know, so we also thrive on a thriving broadcasting sector. You know, it is important that we all work together in as far as that is concerned. We are constrained as well by limited resources because the broadcasting industry, TV broadcasting industry is not doing well. So if the broadcasting industry is not doing well, it means even the resources to provide support are limited. It is for that reason that we always invite our stakeholders, particularly the broadcasters, that we come together so that we discuss ways of where the constraints are, so that the industry, because the numbers are going to continue to grow until we find and establish a thriving industry. We have tried with the limited resources that we have to do quite a lot. If it was not the fact that we are bound by diplomacy and related issues, I was going to call my uncle to order in terms of the extensive support that we have provided in terms of capacity building, in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of all the other things. But I think the main issue is around how do we commercialize, make our TV an industry. An industry is something, and it is for that reason that I made reference to the telecommunications sector, because that is an industry. And there are livelihoods that depend on that industry. The broadcasting sector is an industry. There must be livelihoods that depend on this industry. And we must find ways in terms of how do we make this industry profitable. The minister, honorable minister earlier on said that maybe the traditional way of just saying that this industry is going to rely and live on advertisements, maybe we might want to rethink that. I'm not sure how at this point in time, because we have already seen that there are limited resources that come from advertising. Let's be creative and find ways in terms of, we as the regulator, we are looking up to the broadcasters because that's where money comes from. So if Channel Eswatini and Eswatini TV are not pulling up their socks, unfortunately, that is something that we will have to do. We will have to issue out other licenses with the hope that the new entrants, they will lift up the game so that they create opportunities for the people that are in this room. So it is the licenses that are central. We can provide incentives, we can provide policy, but the licenses are central towards making this industry viable. In the telecommunications sector, it is MTN, it is EPTC, it is Eswatini Mobile. It is the participants, the licenses that carry the main responsibility to making sure that this industry is profitable. We will provide policies and some form of support, but in terms of any other thing, it is the players that are responsible for that.
Thank you, Mr. Fagutse. Also just do want to recognize that we thank you for recognizing that we are indeed bound by diplomacy and civil discourse here, and we may forgive when someone's passion speaks, rightfully so, even in that case. Mr. Mrama, you want to chime in, or because I did have a last question for you before we give the audience. Yeah. Okay, you may chime in.
Bongos, uqinisile regulator akusi responsibility yakhe. Uqinisile futhi ukuthi nalama channels kufanele bengiwo landa ukuthi le industry be sustainable. Kepha na le environment lesikiyo bongwane ukuthi it's a unique environment. The population is a limited number. It is not a population that is conducive for a channel or a TV station to be that profitable quickly on its own. Kutsingeka kusi lo hulumende bongos nawo lama channel sibuye phasi sihlale phasi bongos sikhulume ngokuthi liqiniso leli yes kepha kunama programs lekungawasho lamancane kunabakangwane kuna ekhaya sathi masimshutha wayodlala kaSwazi TV kwafika Standard Bank kwafaka imali waba sponsor saleyo program ngoba le content or the quality of the content was that good for a company like Standard Bank to want to put money into it. So angeke le industry ikhona kuba sustainable singayi kickstart because imeke zero kwekucala lokwesibili njengoba ngishido ukuthi ama independent producers aba engaged for a while emalawo ma programs lawo ukuthi sifike sibuke the regulator ukuthi lama programs lawo emelani and yini lesingayenda ukuthi si revive njengoba ngishido wona ukunena ukuthi lama programs because they were underfunded. Mina bekumele ukuthi ngincishe lama actors, bekumele ukuthi ngincishe lo editor. Bekumele ukuthi ngincishe lokuncisha kusho ukuthi umuntu unconota kuyosebenza Shoprite nethamba ushootha film. Ngiloko lokufana kulungiswa bongwana ayikho khashane le solution nale nkinga ayikho lefihlakele nguleyo nje ukuthi ngiloko ekuqala kwesibili lama companies lama independent producers they are also sustained by corporate work which the regulator need to tap into as well and regulate that space. And that will enable the upcoming filmmakers of tomorrow to be able to tap into the corporate space before they go into TV. Those are the solutions that can sustain the industry.
Thank you, Mr. Makanya. I'm very sure that, as you rightfully speak to the fact that we need to come together and kickstart this machine, I'm sure that notes are being made and they will inform the policies that have already been drafted and some that are already, working towards making sure that the TV industry is thriving. Let me give the audience an opportunity to submit questions to our panelists, but with a disclaimer that the questions that I was directing to these panelists were tailored or tailored to their designations. So should your questions be appropriate to their goals and mandates in their organizations uniquely as they come. By a show of hand, I think Patizwe has the microphone. He'll be able to. Okay, Patizwe, I'm seeing a few hands.
Thank you, Program Director. I'm not sure if I heard the regulator well when he said the regulator is just waiting to see how the two players in the two TV stations that are in the television industry are performing. If they are not performing well, then the valve for competition will be opened. I'm not sure if I heard him well. So if I heard him well, my question is, if competition is good, why wait for the two players in the arena now to fail before competition can be increased for the industry?
Mr. Fabutse, you may respond. She's seeking a moment of clarity as well as a response if that's the case.
Thank you for the question. Not necessarily. It is just that there are other processes at ministry level or at ESCOM level that are being worked on. It is not necessarily that we are waiting to see the performance of the current players. Maybe I may have highlighted that as one of the actions probably that the commission or the regulator can take, but actually it is a number of other actions along those lines. So it's just administrative and legislative related issues that are currently challenging as far as introduction of competition and many other issues are concerned. It's not necessarily that we are waiting to see someone failing or passing at this point in time.
I do realize that Mr. Fabutse, it's a moment for Eswatini TV, true to its fashion, by the way, to get people to preempt some of the work that they are doing. He may have preempted some of the work that you are doing to make sure that the competition is there and that the industry continues to thrive. And so with that question, I hope that you are answered, but he does want to reserve some of the things they are still working on, as he rightfully highlights. We may open the floor for another question.
Thank you. I don't know whether I should stand up or sit, but I think I have to stand up. Thank you, Program Director, for the opportunity. I've got a question and a suggestion. I don't know, Moderator, if I'm allowed to make a comment. One question. I just want to find out I think my question is based on what Mr. Mamba submitted, where he seems to highlight that social media is a problem for traditional media. I just wanted to find out if have they tried to find out how they can make use of social media or new media to sustain themselves as a TV station. I think this question also goes to Eswatini TV, because from what I understand is that new media can be utilized to sustain legacy media, as we have seen in other countries, how they make use of social media and other new media platforms, and they've already accumulated a lot of revenue. I think that is something which we have learned and read about. So one of examples which TV stations can use is narrowcasting, podcast, where people can subscribe and you will get money from those platforms. So I want to find out the social media, instead of seeing it as a challenge, ningayisebenzisa kanjani yona le new media kuze ukuthi nikhone kuthola imali and nibe sustainable, because the truth is we cannot run away from the fact that technology is here to stay. Now we have even AI, and many people are scared of AI, but we have read how AI can be harnessed to sustain media platforms. I think I can stop there from.
Yes. Well, maybe to address the issue of social media being a problem, no, it's not a problem. It is a challenge, as you rightly said. There's something good about it, and there's also this disruptions associated with it. There's so much that we've done, and there's so much positive that has come with social media. Well, what we have done as stations is we've had to come up with strategies in terms of supporting ourselves and ensuring that we also are a part of what is happening within social media. Just as the suggestion that I was making, that let us use social media and be a united force together and send pictures through social media to channel Yemaswati, and we pay these students. That's just part of the positives that social media has come up with. And then also, as a TV station, we've created what we call a roadmap in terms of getting into vertical integration, where we are now using part of social media to fund the operation of the station. That's just basically what we've done. There's just so much that we're trying to do. But however, there's not much I can say here, because much as we complement each other with Eswatini TV, we are also competitors. Thank you.
We do see that Babel Koyama doesn't necessarily want to give away their strategy, their vertical integration strategy, as to how they are going to monetize this social media platforms that we have. Mr. Mnelekeng, you want to respond as well, because it did say the question is for the both of you.
Yes, thank you, Nxumalo. Ngicanga maybe kuphendvula nene. I think kuqala ngile approach yethu lele kufuna siyishintshe, because ku media landscape kunema traits la emergeako. I think one of those traits trait ye convergence. I-TV nasiyibuka itolo, I think bekungilesigubhu nje lesihlala ko all day up until sivule nasifuna kuyisebenzisa. But today you do have a smart TV with the connection to internet. They converge to give you something else. So kufuna nako lokho sikubukele ukuthi i-content yethu vele in terms of lama platforms nale distribution yayo, we need to get into lama platforms lafana nawo bo social media, and also come up with selling propositions la unique. Asengidokubekisela ukuthi lokhu sihleti la sonke we can agree ukuthi sitawuvela etindzabeni, but consumption pattern asiyati ukuthi itaba kanjani. So if I come up with a unique selling proposition, I will say your story, your way, which means the story set for sonke lokhu sila. But in terms of consumption, khona lo tasithatha probably ka TikTok sesijubeke sesisifishane, khona lo ngasithatha ka YouTube, khona lo ngasithatha kuphi, but now kunale variety in terms of how we consume the content yethu lesifakako. Then kumbe lelinye point lengalithini Mr. Nene in response to lo mbuto wakho ngilokwe ukuthi nasi khuluma ngale traditional media lesiva ngazuthi seyinalama challenges laphozwa ngile new media. Kunetinto lekufanele bese sesiyakubuka njengekuthi sibuyele emuva siyobuka ukuthi vele i-communication yona as a process iba effective na ihamba kanjani. Now we are emuva, you will find lokuthi tindzaba besitihambisa one way. Shothi ngithi nje siyakutshela ukuthi kwendekeni ute nale chance yekubuta. So le new media I think ita yona nema opportunities ekwekuthi unga engage ku real time. So that when umuntu kunenvo lafuna kuyiveta ukhona ukuthi lapha kule comment section yaleyo Facebook page ube nemuntu wakho lota engage nalo muntu based on that story lesidlala ngaleso sikhathi leso. I think that's one way yekwekuthi si embrace le new media, and it also allows participation. Ngicanga ukuthi in any space la kune dialogue khona kufuneka ukuthi kuphendvulwane. Bese ke sekuba maybe ngiyole issue yale legislation ngoba nasikhuluma ukuthi ka new media kunalama analytics e data la real time. Kanzi ngala kusafuna ukuthi sicale siyofuna imali sibuye sende i-research noma i-survey senkhansisho ukuthi sibukelwa abantu labangaka nababa nengala basibukelako ngiyabekisa ka YouTube. Then there should be that legislation that us support ukuthi singumsakato sesinedi inombolo letingaka. Therefore we should be getting so much because nalama platform providers labo YouTube nabo banibani bayakubhadala ngedinombolo. But maybe now we need to factor in the issue ukuthi i-commission isibambisa kanjani ukuthi sikhona kushaya lemithetho masinyane ngoba lapha sikhuluma ngedinombolo and ku TV le industry lena whenever you sell you are selling eyeballs bafe bakubute ukuthi now uthi ngiplace le product yami le ngalesikhathi lesi ibukelwa abantu labangakanani. So we still have a challenge in terms of ukuthi sikhiphe le dinombolo letingito. Yes, i-commission yazama kusita lapha nalapha but you need real time data analytics kuphendvula loyo mvulo.
Thank you, Mr. Mamba. Thank you, Mr. Mlelekeng. We want to give an opportunity for one student to ask a question. I beg your pardon. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon. This is a question to the Competitions Commission. Since there's a barrier of entry and spaces for being hired within Swazi TV and Channel S are limited, are there ways you can assist us to creating our own independent companies without the constraint of limited budget? No, with our constraints because we have limited budget at that. So.
I believe she wanted to say this one's for the regulator, the Communications Commission, Mr. Fagutse. Not 100% sure that speaks or that informs the mandates and the goals of the commission, but would you be willing to respond to that question?
Yes, we can respond. I'm not sure if I'm going to get another opportunity, but maybe I can say everything at this point in time. It really to appreciate the organizers of this event for this conversation. I think it has been long overdue from our side, so that we reflect on some of the issues that are there on the ground. We might have, in terms of the conversation, focused on how bad the industry is doing, what are the challenges, what are the issues, but I want to indicate that in the midst of opportunity, of challenges and problems, therein lies opportunities. You know, in an industry that is well functioning, you find that there is even actually no space to enter into something that is working very well. You really need to innovate to a certain level for you to be able to participate in that space. But in this case, the challenges that we are talking about and the issues that we are talking about, it is where young people in particular can focus on in terms of making sure that they find their way. Just responding to the question in particular, we are currently looking into programs that talk to how we can support young people in particular. Sometimes it's difficult to define young, but there is something that we are working on. Actually, we're having a discussion earlier on with my two colleagues that are here along those lines, so we can probably look into something like that, because for the other sectors, there are programs that are almost aligned or similar to what you are asking about that are ongoing. So the opportunity for that is there, and because this is the biggest pool in terms of young people that are in the creative space. Once such programs are finalized, we would probably start here in terms of that conversation, in terms of how it can be structured, because we don't want to also come with a program or initiative. I think we need it coming from the affected person, so that at least it addresses the specific problems and issues that young people have.
Thank you, Mr. Fagutse, and thank you to all of you, our very esteemed panelists. It has truly been an honor to moderate such an insightful conversation. And I just do want to address that while we may have addressed some of the challenges that we face, we have also, shined some light on some of the many great work and the opportunities that are there to make our TV landscape thrive. And the difficulty to identify young people, I just want to submit, may it never be difficult for you guys to identify me as someone that's young. With my bald head and my full beard, I am still very young. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your time. This has been a great forum. Thank you.
Thank you to my colleague, Mr. Ngumalo. That was a very educative and informative forum. This will bring us to the end of our program today. I'd like to give special thanks to Eswatini TV as well as Limpopo University of Creative Technology for sponsoring this program. We are very proud as Limpopo to host Eswatini TV today. This brings us to the end of our program. Now, as we might have done when we began this program, I'd kindly ask Stella Shongwe, our Director of Academics, to pray for us as we close our program. Stella.
Let's close our eyes and pray. Lord, we are humbled this afternoon to have stand at this platform and listened and be empowered and get such an exposure. We give you the glory. May you be glorified. And may we continue with such platform which are an exposure to all of us and which are a collaboration platform. This we ask in Jesus' name. As you bless us and as we live, may you be Lord and be with us all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Stella. I think from myself and my colleague, Mr. Ngumalo, thank you for tuning in to Eswatini TV. Sibugo Semaswati. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the ultimate guide to your weekend entertainment. Get ready to groove with us as we bring you the hottest music videos and exclusive interviews with your favorite celebrities. Experience fresh music videos from new releases, underground sensations, and emerging talent. Whether you're hip-hop, amapiano, or afro,